Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our second webinar session related to the release of xPM. I'm here with Peter again. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Are you well?
Yes.
Excited for today?
Yes.
This is the session that Peter and I have been looking forward to the most, I think, because today we're going to be talking a lot about AI. I think it's a phenomenon right now for technology for AI to be up and coming. I mean, AI has been around for longer than 10 years, right? But I think what's been the most recent or the most crazy advancement of it has been the generative AI, which is the ChatGPT, which is the Copilot, which is what we're seeing so much, and it's available for us to use in everyday life, which I think all of us on this call are probably using for everything outside of business as well. How do I plan my holiday? What do I cook for dinner? So some really cool stuff coming out with AI, and obviously our tool is something that's trying to adapt to this changing environment. So I thought, we could start today's session. I know you got some great content to show us today as well, with potentially, talk us a little bit about kind of what AI means for a kind of in the project management context, and kind of what types of AI do we have to use kind of in that context for us, within xPM, of course.
Yeah, that's a good intro, I guess. So first of all, I think you're right in that AI has been around for longer than generative AI, and it's generative AI that seems to be the most important part of people's AI transformations right now. I think there are many ways to classify and categorize AI also in the context of project management. But I think one of the places where we see the biggest demand right now is in everything that's either repetitive work, status reporting and so forth. And then the other category might be, I think, will be let's say the drafting of something. So not necessarily that AI goes in and takes away your job or your function in any ways. You're the main approver and the owner with the responsibility, but the drafting. So draft me a project schedule based on whatever input criteria or a document that you just drag and drop. Draft me a budget breakdown based on these, if you have a financial grid, you have some categories of cost, you have some time, perhaps a start and end date, and then based on some estimated AI generated cost curve, for instance, just add my numbers in as a draft. So drafting for sure. And then I think, these processes that can be automated with AI is probably the hottest thing. But there's also other aspects to it. We can get back to some of these other categories.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think it's you made a really good point there. I think a question that is asked around all the time over blogs and internet is, is it going to take my job, right? And I think it's really nice for us to understand that there is just so much about it that actually allows us or opens us up to do some more critical thinking. Take away that administration, take away that drafting. I mean, even in my day-to-day work when I'm drafting code, it's so much easier because I'm not spending time writing all these code down and getting it all right, commenting out, and I can actually spend time thinking about actually what do I want this to look like. I think it's a really cool thing. So I guess it would be, I think I know you've got a couple of slides I think you'd like to show. Maybe if we could talk about it in the context of our core solution of xPM, and kind of maybe the different ways that we could use AI in our solution, that would be fantastic.
Good. But then let me just share. I think it's best I share screen then.
Yeah.
Just find my mouse. Here we go. And just trying to share that. Yeah, this one. So just a few slides. So I can speak about this for a long time, and I won't, but I would love to also share something live, ideally, later on. So yes, in our case, of course, we have our solution Projectum xPM, formerly known as Power PPM, which is a lot about project management, portfolio management, program management. And it's this context that we use to attach generative AI around. And that context can be explained in several ways, but I think there are two use cases. One is in-app AI usage, where you sit inside an application as a human, not as a robot. That's another story for later. But as a human, you're working on a form, you're typing in data, and now you want some AI assistance figuring out if your plan is correct or not. So what you see here is essentially that we have, in this case, an example using different quadrants or let's say categories from PMI. We have tweaked them a little bit to be better fitted to our, let's say, solution. But the three categories: automation that I talked about just before, drafting, and then the third one I didn't mention, which would be decisions. And decision making is, of course, a little bit more tricky. Right now, it's a lot about having AI suggest different scenarios for you that you can then choose from. But you need to be pretty sure that those decisions or scenarios are accurate. Whereas if it's drafting, of course, that's also important. It's accurate, but it's still just a draft.
Yeah.
So no matter what, you can always oversteer it. That's why most people start in these two buckets. And here we have tons of different, let's say, almost ready to use, let's say, AI used cases.
Yeah.
I think that's the right word for it. And risk scheduling is just one, but it could be lessons learned. That's something that most have asked for, is that you create a new project. This new project gets a description, or maybe some other details. It would be great if automatically the project initiator could see that, hey, this project actually looks like something we did 25 times before. And based on those past projects, here's what you should know. Because no one likes to read through lessons learned from the past.
No.
And I think most don't even do it. And even worse, sometimes it's actually to write them down. Yeah. And AI can do both. So that's something we've seen a lot of people applying. Status reports, definitely SWOT analysis, gate approvals. If you can have AI assist you in your gate approval as a sponsor, as a steering group, and we can, then everyone wants it. So when we ask, would you like it if we could, and we show it, of course, and then people tend to say, of course, we don't want it. Maybe I will use it, maybe I won't, but if I can get a second opinion, in this case from a robot or an agent, then I'm happy. Yes. So there's a lot of cases, and they're not equally complicated to do. Some are very easy and some are more tricky. Yes. And the other aspect to this is, of course, the agent story. Agents is 2025 is the year of agents, more than generative AI. Yeah. And agents can sometimes be also translated as, some would translate it into, isn't it just a workflow like Power Automate? With some extra flavor of AI in it, and it's not. An agent is much more than that, depending on how you use it. For us, we also here categorize agents into sort of 3 complexity levels. One is retrieval or summary agents that can just, like ChatGPT, answer your question. But in this case, the agent sits on top of an application, so it knows about the data. Sorry, so you can write what's the status for this and this portfolio, and you get the big picture. From Teams, from the application, from your phone, whatever. Then we have the tasking part, where you are also helping the user in a guided process, creating something new. Could be a project or a program. And again, based on what you write with the agent, it can be approved, not approved, or it can give you risks, perhaps even before the project is created. Lots of things. Some of the things I'll show live today. Yes. And the third one is something that people talked quite a lot about, especially technical folks last year, the autonomous stuff. But this is where you should see it. And I think this is important to mention, that in the future, you could probably expect that as a project manager, you log on to the system, right? Or you don't even log on, you just go in, you create your project, and imagine that it says, so who's going to be the project leader for this project? And you say that's me. And then maybe it asks, who's going to be the project administrator? Yeah. And you could select yourself, or you could select an agent or robot and say, this I'm going to outsource to my friend here. And then all the things around making sure people are up to date, pushing people for input, making sure KPIs are set, maybe even writing up what's going on in these KPIs could be done by the robot. Yeah. And then you as a project leader have to focus on the leadership part. Yes. So it's not either or. I think in project management, it's very highly a matter of both and. Yes. But you should probably be able to do more as a project manager.
I think that's great too. It's going to, again, going back to, again, that critical thinking, that leadership that we're able to do by the assistance of AI is cool. And I love this slide. This is my favorite. It really helped me understand kind of agents and Copilot in general. I guess a question around this though, what kind of control do I have as the PMO? If I've got my project managers going in and creating status updates, or I've got them going in and creating risks, how do I know that it's aligned with our business governance, how we create risks, how we create timelines?
Yes, good point. So I think the quick answer to that is, one, we use right now at least the OpenAI models. They are part of the Microsoft suite in the platform. They actually are with the customers themselves in the cloud, so also secure. That being said, we have model selection options, so we can have a small one or large one. Very soon we'll be able to select from any model worldwide, and there are right now 1,600 just in the Azure catalog. So a lot. No one will understand which model is best for what unless you are sort of working with it every day, which we are. But imagine again that one thing is that you have the model you can choose, then you want it to behave in a certain way. Yeah. If you're running, let's say, totally out of the box Prince2 project methodology or PMI PMBOK version 6, you don't need to upload your project documentation because that knowledge is already in ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So you can just write as what is called an instruction for AI, that in our case, you're going to base all your answers, all your plans, all your risks on Prince2 whatever version, or scaled agile for 4.5 or something.
Yeah.
And then it will behave in that context. On top of that, you can then add what is called also guardrails, which is sort of the next level, where you say, if people ask about this, if they're suddenly starting to ask about financial advice or something, then you should close down the dialogue. So that's a matter of also instructing the agent to when to shut down and not give you an answer.
Yes.
Because otherwise, that's the problem with generative AI. Very important to mention that if you don't tell it when not to answer, it will almost always answer.
Mm.
And that's where people run into what they say as hallucinations.
Yeah.
But you can skip that part if you tell it when to not answer. But besides that, we have lots of technical tools to validate if an answer is correct or not, without it being very complicated or coding. It's something we can do as also PMOs.
Yes.
But all of these is probably a longer demo, but we have those tools to make sure it works the right way.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's really cool, because it also opens up the possibility that AI doesn't have to be for those really mature, governance models or really mature customers.
No.
It can be for people just getting started,
Yes.
people that, I have never run a project at this company before. How do I create a timeline? How do I do some risk? What does this company do? And how do we work? So I really like that as an entry level, using AI for an entry barrier, to break the entry barrier. Cool. We've got some questions on the chat that I will cover. The one from Kevin, I've definitely seen it, but we'll cover that towards the end because it's more related to a call to action. Maybe what would be really cool is if you could take us into a live demo and maybe show some of the stuff that we've been talking about. That would be great, Peter.
I tried to sort of write down, because we have 15 things to show, but today we're going to focus on 3. One is how to set up a project with an agent. And again, when you say an agent, it could be from Teams, it could be from a phone, you could speak it, you could write it. There are many ways to do it.
Yes.
The other one is AI-assisted scheduling. So just a basic example on if you want to create a project plan. So the scheduling, which is actually the trickiest part probably to do in our world right now. With AI, how does that work? And the third one is a status summary or SWOT analysis or something like that. What are the options there to make that? And I'm using those 3 because those 3 use cases are what I see across many of our customers is something they have already, most of them enabled. It's something that works fine and has worked fine for more than a year now.
Yeah.
So it's not in preview, it's not in beta. It works also in your languages, that whatever you have. So
excellent.
Let me try and go into the app here itself. So I'm right now inside Projectum xPM, just doing a quick refresh to make sure it's all up and running. And just do it like this, it's better. And first of all, I'm not gonna demo anything about PPM right now. We have other videos covering that. So just gonna assume that everyone is on board. But here are, in this case, all the projects. And when I look at all the projects like this, I can of course, already see that we have Copilot icons. Not that I'm gonna use them right now, but the point is that Copilot is everywhere, and Copilot is our version of generative AI.
Yes.
ChatGPT.
Yes.
So I can use ChatGPT in this case, or Copilot, to create my charts, so visuals, so reports and dashboards, and I can use it to find data by writing free text. On top of that, I have a Copilot icon up here, and if I click on that, then you can see that it says, "Hello, Peter," and here are examples on how I can help you with projects. Because the cool thing about using AI in the context of Projectum xPM is that we know the context of where the user is. We know this person is on the project page. We know it's Peter, and therefore we know that we can offer, in my case, this person 3, 4, or 5, or many more options. So instead of just having to start from the ground up writing, act as a project manager, act as Peter in the company Projectum, then become a Prince2, and so forth. So you don't have to write all of that. We know that. So instead, we can just click, for instance, on Create Project, and then immediately it starts guiding you on what do you want to do. And in this case, what is the name of the project? So we say it's the demo project 500. So please provide a good project description. And we can then say, build a rocket and fly. So let's see if this is a good description of a project. And in this case, you can see it's rejected. So this is where we're using lots of I think people are used to prompts these days, but we have a variety of micro prompts that are used whenever we need to. So in this case, every time a user writes a description, there is a prompt that validates whether or not it's a good description, if it's good enough, so that we save approvers time having to write back, this is not good enough, yada, yada. So it's very easy for a company to go in, create a prompt for what good looks like when it comes to project descriptions, or add 5 examples, and then have AI do the rest from there.
Just like the entry barrier we were talking about, right?
Exactly.
People starting out the company. It's fantastic.
Yes. So now it says it's been rejected. Here's a suggestion for what you could write if it should be better. And I'm just going to be the lazy one right now and just copy this to speed it up. And we say, yes, let's try again then. And we try with the new description. And now it's, going on to the next step. And here it's a matter of money. It could be anything, but now I'm just set it up for the demo to ask for money. So I write 50,000 in budget, very cheap rocket. Benefits are very high. And now it's approved already. At least the description is. We have enough about, let's say, measurable goals, or at least the money side. And then it gets to the action part. Would you like me to create a project now with risks and stakeholders, or just a project? Yeah. And we say, well, if you can give me a suggestion for risks and stakeholders, why not? And this is where we see most people click, yeah, just give me the draft. It's very few that would say, no, I don't need any draft. Let me do it all from the ground up. I don't think anyone would do that. Yep. So no matter what level you are at, some sort of draft will always help you do better and do work faster. Yes. So project has been created. I can then click here and go straight through to it like this. Could also just find it over here, I think. It's probably easier. There we go. So demo project 500 is here. And when I open it up, you can immediately see that, let's just remove this one now. So it has the categorization, large project, build a rocket that can fly to an altitude, and so forth. The money I put in is there as well. The amazing ROI of 99 is also there. It has created a SharePoint site in this case, so we're ready to collaborate around documents. And the interesting part, of course, is that what happens if I go to my risks now? Because we said yes to having it create risks. So clicking on risks now should show a list of, in this case, 10 suggested risks for creating a rocket that can fly to the moon, right? Yes. And you can see them down here as well. And if you don't agree with what is here, you can just change it by, changing it like in Excel. But you can also here say, I think this is up here, and I think this should be there. And so oversteering AI. Also notice that, which is important for the demo, that one thing is that we create a risk, but if you open it up, we can have AI generate anything around that particular risk or task or project. Yes. So right now I said yes to it, creating a description and also a mitigation step. So we can really take it a step further. So that's this risk part. The other one we said yes to was the stakeholders. And as you can see here, it also tried to come up with ideas for what could be top 10 stakeholders when you create a project around rockets. So just one example, and I think for the second part now, in demo-wise, sticking to the plan and the few minutes we have.
Yes.
That was the schedule, right?
Yes, of course.
So if I go to the timeline, then right now it will be empty. And this is where we have the option to start from scratch, or you could start with templates. Most companies still have these templates around. Mm-hmm. Or you could say, I'm going to use AI, which could be a combo of templates plus your prompt.
Yes.
So if I say start from AI, basically what you have to do here is just to create a description. You could also inherit it from the project description, but let's just do it again and say, create a rocket that can fly to the moon. Start the project in, let's say, June 2025. Just something like that. We could have this being a very long text if you wanted to. You just keep writing. You could also write the use Prince2. And that's back to your original question. We could also have let's say the agent behind the scenes understand that no matter if I write Prince2 or not, it will always base it on Prince2. Yeah. So the idea is that you don't have to be a prompt expert. No. I think everyone has to just know how to explain something, either verbally or writing. Yes. And then the rest will be taken care of by the AI. But as you can see, it's pretty fast now, and it becomes faster every month almost, these things. Yes. But right now we have a June plan for, let's just zoom out a bit, per month here for creating a project that can fly to the moon. And there's some R&D stuff. There's a milestone. There are some phases. And right now it's around 20 tasks because that's what I limited it for. But you can definitely configure whatever you want here and say, go nuts on creating 1,000 tasks or 10 tasks. Or if you have some structure, then stick to that. But this is generally speaking a good draft, I think, for anyone. And if you have some predefined templates you can upload to the knowledge of the agent behind the scenes, then of course it will do more drafts that are, let's say, tailored for your company where you're working, right?
Yeah, of course.
And the final one, which is fairly quick to show as well, is that, let me just add some progress here and maybe change the project to being now in the business case stage, because we need that. But when it comes to the statusing, let's just save it. So from the front page here of a project, any program will always have the ability to enable a summary up here. That is essentially a status.
Wow.
Showing the start date and end date, the budget, the actual cost, the financial benefits, the ROI, the KPIs, the stage it's in, and so on. You can see it's not updated right now, but it will be as if you click refresh immediately. Alternatively to that, which is the status report part that I would like to show, when you go in and say, let's create a status or a check-in of this project, you click here and you say today is probably the 24th, that's fine, or let's just make it the 30th here. You can then write things are well, but some employees are sick or something. You can then say, I want AI to do the summary or help me at least draft it. Say, yes, please. And then we go in and say, what is the status? Well, budget is red, green, or yellow. This could be set also by an agent, but right now I'm doing manually. You can also have rules saying that if you hit red, please make sure that the user comes with some additional input. But let's just say it's all green now to just save some time and just remove this. And we say save and close. Then it creates a one-line version of the truth, which is that right now we are in business case. It's the 30th of April. It's the 50,000 budget, actual cost 0. And of course, these numbers will change every time you do a check-in, which allows us to do a over time report. Yes. Now, if I open up the report like this, and this report has the status, all the information we added. They are logged typically, so you cannot change the past unless you are a special person. Yes. But finally, the AI status summary here will show maybe in a few seconds. I'm working quite fast right now. Let's see, here we go. So the project is currently at 16% ahead. KPI status is no issue, so that's positive. Some employees are sick. That could impact. I didn't write this, right? I just said some are sick. Yes. So the idea is that the few ingredients we have is typically enough to draft up a useful status. Yeah. And on that note, as a final comment, one thing is me clicking on create status bi-weekly. But if you had an autonomous agent, that could just go in and do a status every time it was needed without you doing anything. Yes. And you could also send it to anyone without you doing anything. Yes. So that's a balance where people have to figure out where they want to sort of put the pace they want, right?
Yes, I think it's really great too. So let's say I'm a user, but I want I want to be prompting the status for my specific structure. I have a PowerPoint that I always put in as a status summary. Is there any way for the user to be able to prompt themselves to do this rather than having, a prompt that lives in the background? Can I prompt this myself to say, I would like user as an end user?
Yes, you can do that. What you would do then add another field which says, so you said yes to getting AI to write your summary. Yeah. Please explain some more about it. Yes. And then you just basically write in what you wanted to do. So yes,
awesome.
You can add that into the tool, or you could do it from the agent right here.
From the agent in there, of course, and ask from there. Yes. Great, awesome. Cool. We're moving on with time, which is good. We've got a question from Kevin, which I think will lead us into kind of the last part of this. So Kevin asks, how can we use AI to our advantage in PPM? You kind of covered a lot of that already. And to what degree is it available when using Projectum's PPM solution, which I think leads us into this next part of the discussion.
Well, that's good. So I think I'll answer that with a slide as well.
Exactly.
Here. And we can share these slides as well if needed afterwards. No, I think there are different ways to get started, but for the most part right now, it's a matter of, first of all, you have Microsoft, you have Microsoft Power Platform. Yes. Otherwise, you won't have our xPM product. But if you have that, which I hope, luckily a lot have, then the next step is typically that we enable scheduling and risk development, risk creation, because those are two great places to get drafts up and running. Yep. To enable that can be done in typically an hour. Yep. But what it will do is sort of work like ChatGPT works out of the box, which for some is awesome. It is great and super powerful. But if you wanted to then be able to understand your way of working, or there are past 10 years of risks, then that requires a little bit of more effort than an hour. But out of the box, it's possible to enable GPT in a secure way to work and then create your risks and your schedules, basically. Then after that, typically comes the need for an agent or something that can also help you automate things like status reports and those sort of trivial processes. Here we typically rely on what is called Copilot Studio, which is also part of Power Platform without you doing anything. everyone can go in there and also use some sort of co-pilot. What we will use here is the one that's embedded inside the app. And here we then, of course, have to also instruct it in terms of how does a good status report look like, for instance. And the way to explain that is to simply give it an example of a good status report. So no one is coding anything. And once we're done with that, then typically you have an agent that can answer anything and acts as an expert in anything in your tool. And finally, most that have Microsoft Copilot already would like this PPM agent or xPM agent to connect to the bigger Copilot story. We call that a Copilot orchestration or AI orchestration. That's a bit more complicated and people are not there yet. But it all connects essentially if you want to. But the point is, schedules and risks, safe place to start. Sometimes also status reports, I think. After that comes more tailored use cases, still not coded in any ways and can be done super fast. But I think start with something basic that will provide immediate value for the majority.
So it sounds, if I've got PPM and I'm in the Power Platform, getting to that next stage is actually really easy.
Yes, and it's in tool-wise, feature-wise, in Projectum xPM, it's an out-of-the-box thing.
Yes.
But of course, organizations have to say yes to it, and the Department of IT have to say that's okay, and those types of things.
Yes, of course. Maybe before I answer, maybe ask one of the last questions before we finish. I think we've got one more slide where I think it's going to really help our users understand what is it that they can do now to kind of help them get into this stage. Is it about getting my data right? Is it about getting my processes right? Is it about bringing the users on board for AI? What can we be doing as a PMO, as a company, to be helping this journey?
I think probably speaking to this one, that's true. I think if first of all, we should understand that when we say we have an agent, it's sort of saying we have ChatGPT, but acting in a certain way for whatever we want it to do. So that's an agent. It's the same as ChatGPT, but in a way that we can control. That agent is essentially an expert in your way of working.
Yes.
And then we need to train it. But I think this is a simple one-pager that can sometimes kick off a very long talk, internal talk, typically with our customers, where they have to define what is. So if we know what good looks like from a status report perspective, what does good look like from an agent perspective? An expert in your way of working would be what?
Yes.
So what would it know about? How would it know about it? How would it use it? So all the data it has access to. Does it also know about your ERP financial systems? Does it know about your vendors, your customers? All of that stuff. So essentially just drawing up what is an expert xPM, PPM agent superhero. What would that be? And then once we have that, we can load in all those ingredients, those connections to whatever systems or documents, and then release it. So that the plan it will help you create the next time is perfect, or much more than just a basic draft, right?
Yes.
But it starts with all these questions, and they're not always that easy to answer.
No, they never are. That's really good, though. It's good to know that some of the call to action for us kind of going forward and what customers can do to kind of get started. I think that's pretty much all we've got time for. The last question that we've got is more related to kind of xPM and the other discussion we'll have. So Carl Magnus will answer you that and send you an email after this chat. But I think fantastic. Thank you so much for your insights into AI. I think that was a really good, quick, but I think very insightful conversation around AI and what we can do going forward. So thank you, Peter, and thank you all for coming. See you next time.
Bye-bye.